Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. If you'll please rise and join with me in a full minute of silence to remember the fallen, the prisoners of war, the missing in action, and to honor those who have served and are serving in this great nation's armed services. Please, a minute of silence. Thank you. At this time, I would like to recognize Jackie Pond, Superintendent of Leon County Schools. Superintendent.
Thank you. Today I wanted to come and welcome everybody that's here. I don't think there's anything that we do more important in our school system than today's event. As I look around and see the individuals that are here today, on behalf of our school system, I want to recognize our Gold Star mothers that are here today, to let them know that we think about them every day. We honor them for service, for commitment, and we appreciate what they have given back to our community, to our state, but most important, our country. Students not far from here, we have a memorial that we put up at the Bloxham building as a school system to honor all the young heroes that we have lost in service, and their names were up there that will be remembered forever. And today's event makes me think about them. It makes me think about the true heroes that we have in our community, the individuals that we should all look up to, and that we don't just remember them today, but we remember them every day. Remember their service, their commitment, and the gift that they've given back to us, the gift of freedom that we should never, ever take for granted. So I welcome you here today. I thank all of you that are here, and also challenge you. Let's get up every day that we get up, and let's think about who the real heroes are in our country, and let's always honor their service and commitment to our great nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent. At this time, I would ask everybody to remain standing while the combined Leon County Schools Junior ROTC presents the colors. You may be seated. It's my pleasure to introduce to you the dignitaries who are on the rostrum today. We'll move from your left to your right. Joe Farmer with the Patriot God Riders, Buddy Perryman. Got General William Webb, Chief Master Sergeant John Schmidt, and Superintendent Jackie Pons. Let's give them all a big round of applause. We've got several special guests who are with us today, but do want to recognize first and bestow a special recognition towards several Gold Star mothers who are with us this afternoon. Gold Star mothers, for those who are not familiar with the term, are women who have lost a son or daughter to enemy combat. During the early days of World War I, a blue star was used to represent each person, man or woman, in the military service of the United States. As the war progressed and men were killed in combat, others wounded and died of their wounds or disease, there came about the accepted usage of the Gold Star. The idea of the Gold Star was that the honor and glory accorded the person for his supreme sacrifice in offering for his country the last full measure of devotion and pride of the family in this sacrifice, rather than the sense of personal loss, which would be represented by the mourning symbols. On June 4th, 1928, a group of 25 mothers residing in Washington, D.C. met to make plans to organize a national organization to be known as the American Gold Star Mothers. On January 5, 1929, the organization was incorporated under the laws of the District of Columbia. On June 12, 1984, the 98th Congress of the United States of America granted the American Gold Star Mothers Incorporated a charter. The goals of the organization include perpetuating the memory of those whose lives were sacrificed in our wars, maintaining true allegiance to the United States of America, inculcating lessons of patriotism and love of country in the communities in which we live, inspiring respect for the stars and stripes in the youth of America, extending needful assistance to all Gold Star mothers and, when possible, to their descendants, and to promote peace and goodwill for the United States and all other nations. Today, we have the following Gold Star mothers and their families with us who are here to honor the memory of their fallen children. If you could stand when I call your name. Alberta Simmons, mother of Sean Elliott Simmons. Tammy Wise, mother of Robert Allen Wise. And Meredith McMacken, mother of Julian McMacken Woodall. Ladies and gentlemen, please show them your respect and a round of applause. I do want to tell you that our guest speaker is General William B. Webb. He's retired president of United Technologies International. He served 29 years in the United States Air Force, retiring as a brigadier general in 1986. He is very active in financial management and West Point recruiting. He lived more than 20 years outside the borders of this country, including Ethiopia, Belgium, Vietnam, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and China. He is a command pilot with more than 3,000 flying hours in a wide variety of operational aircraft, any one of which I will see over my home, I'm sure. He is a graduate of the United States Military Academy at West Point, holds a Master of Science degree in International Affairs, is a graduate of the National War College and the U.S. State Department's Foreign Service Institute School of Chinese Language. He is fluent in Mandarin, Chinese, and Spanish. That was the other person who was told. General and Mrs. Webb have resided in this great city since 1992. Ladies and gentlemen, General Webb.
We will convene the court-martials immediately after this presentation. It's an honor to introduce one who is, by commitment to service and performance, part of the legacy which is fundamental to what has made our Air Force the finest in the world. Chief Master Sergeant Smith is a veteran of 30 years of Air Force service. He has served nationwide at many locations and is a veteran of the Vietnam conflict. Very importantly, through these assignments, he has brought to us the experience and perspective of our total force. Chief Smith is the recipient of many awards, among them the 1970 Senior Non-Commissioned Officer of the Year while at the Air Force Academy. His military awards include the Bronze Star, Meritorious Service Medals, Air Force Commendation Medals, and other Foreign Service and U.S. awards. In our community, he is a legend. He was responsible for the formation and instruction of the first junior ROTC program in Leon County at our Godby High School. He was honored by our county following 15 years of dedicated service to the unit by naming a newly constructed ROTC building in his name. Following retirement, Chief Smith has led and been active in many military and civilian associations. Of great significance, he was president of our Air Force Association of Tallahassee for many years and continues to serve it through leadership and support of the Executive Council. Chief Smith has embodied the principles of duty, honor, and country with the resultant respect of our community and the nation. He is particularly well qualified to address us on this important occasion. Thank you. John?
Thank you, General Webb. Ladies of our Gold Star community, I'm so happy you're here and so pleased to be part of any program that involves you, and I extend my blessings all the time. I think of, when I see a flag, I think of Gold Star. I think that's what it's all about. I'm sorry, but thank you. To our other guests here today, it's so great to see you, and Superintendent Pons is always wonderful. And, General Webb, of course, a good friend, old friend, and there's one thing about General Webb and the things that he says is he's himself, as you've heard, has served our nation with distinction and honor for many years. He's a pilot, he's an aviator, he's a fighter pilot. He has that kind of attitude. I've introduced in my career many generals, a number of admirals, a governor or two, a commander-in-chief of a major air command, even a distinctive Medal of Honor winner. I've had those pleasures during my career in many of my assignments that I was involved in certain programs. But I've never been introduced by a general. It's been the other way around. So this is my first time being introduced by a general officer. And the podium is not as wide as my, so let me do that. So I can't correct anything the general said. Whatever he said is gospel. I might try to correct him or advise him, but we chiefs don't correct general officers. We help them, but we don't correct them. So therefore, I appreciate what he said, and I have to take it as gospel. My charge today was to talk to you all about the ROTC units in Tallahassee, the junior ROTC units, which we know well. I feel I must give some thoughts and how and why we did this. So let me quote the Democrat that was just a couple of weeks ago. There was an article written in the Democrat. I'd like to paraphrase it, if I may. Now, I'm going to ask your permission and also your condolences to the fact that as you get older, you take some medications that do certain things to you. We all know that. And one of the medications I take has to do with dry throat. And please bear with me. With the cool weather and the wind and my medication, I need a squirt or two in order to keep my mouth moving. Right there. On 5 November, in the Democrat, the blog said, a lady who was an educator, a writer, and a parent, every week, she said, quiet activities take place on campus. They instill in others and everyone else on campus a sense of pride in our country. Another one was once a week, dress out day, or as we called it in the Air Force, uniform day. Well-dressed, well-groomed, pride in themselves and pride in their schools. Another quote, the mission of the Junior ROTC program is to motivate young people to be better citizens. And the last quote I'd like to take from our article is that inherent in this program is the importance of respect for others. Ladies and gentlemen, she was referring to our leaders, our future leaders of this country. She said what I came to say. A century ago, National Defense Act of 1916, give or take a couple of years, that's a century. That's how long ago that the United States decided that they would provide such a program in high schools, not in college, high schools, authorize this program to be able to teach young men, they didn't include women at that time, young men, and to instill in these students, secondary school students, the value of citizenship, the value of service to nation, and personal responsibility, and a sense of accomplishment. That time in 1916, it was just the Army, and they established and they developed a course of instruction that included citizenship and patriotism. It included self-reliance, responsibilities to all authority. It was there to improve their ability to communicate both in writing and in speaking, and the importance of physical fitness. It included also, back in those days, the role of the armed forces in their role in national objectives. And team building obviously was there. It was a reason to try to get people to come and join, was to give them some benefit to this program. There was absolutely no benefit whatsoever by taking the program that you would join. There was no program that said you must join the service. Obviously, there had to be some incentive, and that incentive was, if you completed the program, which basically is 3 years, some schools may have it in 4, and I know in the Air Force you can take it for 4 years, but if you get a certificate of completion, you can get advanced rank. And that may not sound like a lot, having nothing on your sleeve to having an airman first class and about $800 more a month. Well, that's a lot of money. Some people, $800 a month in itself is fine. I'm talking the difference in pay between no rank and what you get by completing the program is advanced rank. In 1964, the rest of the services joined in, and they continued to provide to this ROTC Vitalization Act. And it gave directions to all services to come up with additional objectives for their service secretaries to establish and maintain. The basic mission is to be physically fit. Excuse me, dry mouth and dry fingers is all a part of the same program. The program then was advanced to establish and provide meaningful leadership of instructions and benefit the students and values of the armed forces. Of note here, there are 13 other nations in the world that have a very similar junior ROTC program. They may not call it by that name, but 13 other nations realize the significance and value of such a program for their youth. They provide a similar program. I'm not sure I have precise figures here, but it's close to, if not over, 4,000 of those units in the United States at this time of all the services. And of course, the Army being the largest and the Coast Guard having the less numbers. But when I came to Tallahassee in '81 and to set up and stand up Gandhi, I think there were 16 Air Force units in Florida, and there's probably over 50 now. So there's a continuation of advancing this program. The big thing is that we want the students to be physically fit and to provide that kind of training. This must be an elective in the school system, and it has to be U.S. citizens or legal foreign nationals. And they have to provide by certain standards that the service provides. And those standards are to be able to wear a uniform, obviously, in the proper fashion, and provide the military standards from dress and appearance. And they're going to be taking science and military history courses. Some units vary widely in the diversity of the training. Now you can think of what the Army does, and the Navy, the Marines, and the Air Force. We all have different missions, they all lead to the same thing. But enabled to get up there, we do different ways. The Air Force doesn't normally have boats, ships, but I must tell you, my first assignment in the Air Force in 1951, I wore a white hat and dungarees. I served aboard an 85-foot crash boat. My first assignment in the Air Force was a Marine engineer aboard a crash boat. So yes, in those days, the Air Force did have boats. We don't do it anymore, we use helicopters, but in those days, boats were the things. Some things I inferred when I read that blog is that not just academics, but physical fitness was so important. Presidential physical fitness programs are part of the junior units. Physical fitness is also extremely valuable when it comes to leadership. If you're asked to lead an organization and you are not physically fit, you won't be able to lead. You won't be able to be there to ask your men and women to follow if you can't do it. So physical fitness is something very much involved. 80 years ago, I was dropped into a life of living amongst the military. When I arrived in the Panama Canal Zone, I was 4 years old, and everything around me was military. There were airplanes, there were ships, there were tanks, there were anti-aircraft units, there were barrage balloons. Everything you could think about the military was all around me. So I grew up learning and feeling some sort of connection to that military. So when I became a student in high school in 1948, there was an Army Junior ROTC program which I took in place of physical fitness, or not physical fitness, but whatever they call it, the gym where you jumped around and ran the tracks or so forth. I decided that I would go with the ROTC program. It started in 1948 in the Panama Canal. It still continued all the way through 1999 when the canal zone ceased to exist and no longer was a canal zone school system. So it lasted quite a while and was very, very respected by most and everybody who had anything to do it. I was very, very proud to be part of it. It was a continuation of what I knew from the time I was 4 years old. And it also provided me with the kinds of preparation I needed when a few years later I had enlisted in the Air Force and then spent the rest of my 30 years serving in the Air Force. The program started in 1981 when a Democrat had an article. Actually, 1980, the article in the Democrat talked about the Leon County Schools was going to establish a ROTC program here in the county. In 1980, I happened to come up here for Christmas because my family was here, I'm sorry, and I was stationed at Tyndall. So I came up and I saw in the paper where they were going to establish a unit, so I inquired. Colonel Charlie Hopkins was very, very responsible for getting this done. And he worked with the school board to get them to establish the program. There was some consternation amongst the schools. At that time, it wasn't Childs here, but it was the other three, as to where the program would go. I've heard different stories about which principal said they would like to have it and which principal said they don't want it. But I do know that once Godby was established in 1981, it wasn't very long after that we heard from other principals saying, wow, why can't we have one? And so, as you know, we established units in later years. Godby was the first in 1981. I was fortunate to be able to ask to go to the county school board and sit down with their people and advise them about the regulations and the U.S. code and so forth about how the unit is to be established, and more significantly, how the instructors are to be paid. And this was very, very valuable because they didn't know what the rules were, and I did talk to them, and they accepted what we came up with. And from what I've been told, the units today are still receiving that valuable incentive to be instructors in the ROTC program. And we sort of got our units to work together. And by then we were having the naval unit at Lincoln and the Army unit at Rickards. And Colonel Mayor Littman came in at Godby and served for about 5 or 6 years. And then Colonel Mears came in and took over from him. And this was good. It was good in our program to have an aviator, someone who flew, someone who had seen much more significant service than working in an office, because there were certain things that are very impressionable to young cadets. And to see someone standing with a chest full of ribbons and decorations and to know what they are and what they stood for, and to see a set of wings on his chest and knew that he was an aviator. And so when you're teaching meteorology, when you're teaching avionics, and when you're trying to teach the students about why we're here and where we came from, you have a senior NCO in the program who's teaching leadership and management, and these students get some sort of good feel because you've had experience, and so it rubs off. It rubs off the fact that they can see what you've done. The 1993, as I said, Rickards and Leon came on and joined the program, and this gave us an opportunity to share in things that we would never be able to know. Colonel Wade Loving at Rickards High School, a 2 Silver Star veteran of combat. 2 silver stars. That's almost, next to the Medal of Honor, right up there amongst number 3. So this is the kind of instructors we had. Rickard with Colonel Wade Levin, and then Sergeant Major Pat Brown. Here was another valuable asset to the program. Sergeant Major Brown was a paratrooper. He was airborne. He had 2 combat tours in Vietnam, as well as Colonel Levin. And over at Lincoln, we had Commander Charlie Fowinkle. Charlie Fowinkle flew airplanes off carriers. Now, that's not just flying. That's really something else when you fly off carriers. And this means a lot. When you're teaching your students about these sorts of activities, have the personal experience. Charlie Fowinkle was wonderful. And with him was Master Chief Petty Officer. Master Chief Petty Officer Dave Thomas. Dave was about 8 or 9 feet tall, if I recall. He was he looked like right out of a cartoon character, tall, dark, and I have to admit he was handsome. And when he was dressed up in his mess dress uniform, as we do on certain occasions, with that red sash and all that beautiful stuff on his chest, when you're a young kid, that means a lot to look up and see people who you're working with, being proud. Dave Thomas was a super guy. We got a chance to share in the Army, Air Force, and the Navy. I'm getting to the other one in a minute. But we got a chance to share in our military balls, in our functions that we participated together, in our joint service color guards, which were never anything like you see today. This is really the tops of the line. Thanks to Gunny Sergeant Reeves, takes care of that. So we didn't have that kind of participation, but we did work together on a lot of field activities. We even got together with folks down in Perry, their unit, and worked with them. And we went to Camp Blanding, spent a week at Camp Blanding in the barracks. So there's a lot of things that we did because the new units came on board. Now let me talk for just a moment here, if I can, about 1996. I was retiring and the Marine Corps was arriving. In 1996, the unit was started up at Leon. Now here we go with what we hoped in the other branches would happen. We wanted the Marine Corps so badly because I don't think there's too many cities in the United States that has all 4 services represented in a junior ROTC program. We were really up there. And of course, we got people like Gunnery Sergeant Reeves to come in and run the show. And Colonel Wilford Johnson, Major Charles Plowman, and Gunnery Sergeant Anthony Reeves, Marine setup at Leon. We were so happy. Now, you may not think about it, but think about when you look at a parade, and we had one just last month. There was a lot of folks marching, but I want to say here and now in front of my Air Force, Navy, Army, cohorts, and brethren, there's no finer marching unit in Tallahassee than the Leon High School Marching Marines. No finer unit in the city. That's because we have people like Gunnery Sergeant Reeves, who stands up and teaches these cadets how to march. If you saw that, you'll be proud. Now, whenever you need to be thinking about pride, look at that marching unit, and Sergeant Reeves is right there. Gunnery Sergeant Reeves. Excuse me. I had a grandson in that Leon program, and I wish he had stayed longer, but he didn't. I just wanted to thank the people currently leading the program, and I know it's getting long, but I do want to let you know that the people that are currently working the program need to be congratulated. Lieutenant Colonel Ken David at Godby High School, Senior Master Sergeant Willie Ushery are now leading the folks at Godby High. Major Joe Christian and Master Sergeant Jerome Harrison at Rickards High, and you can see Major Christian all over, all the time, in any activity in this city. He is there to help. He's really a valuable asset. And over at Lincoln, Lieutenant Commander Eric Snyder, and Senior Chief Otis Campbell, and Chief George Burton at Lincoln. And I especially like the Lincoln unit. They put together fine ceremonies. They honor the local community, and when it comes to their change of command ceremonies, you can't ask for a better formation of cadets. That's wonderful, what the job they do. And so I think I've covered everything except there's one unit that's not part of Leon County Schools, but over here at FAMU, in the FAMU program, Florida A&M Developmental Research School. Lieutenant Colonel Joseph Membrick, Sergeant First Class John Ford, and a Master Sergeant Lenore. They have received great accolades over the year for their program. So they're not part of Leon County, but they are a junior unit that stands out in the community. I hadn't intended to be so wordy, I'm sorry, but when I got to thinking about what I wanted to say, I didn't want to leave anything out and leave anybody out. So, has it been worth it? Has it been worth it? I have no other answer, but you betcha it's been worth it. Let me just take some measurements, please, and some local plaudits. Out this way, or maybe it's this way, I can't recall where I am right now. We have a sitting judge in the appeals court of Florida, a sitting judge, first cadet commander at Godby High School. I'm sorry, thank you. Thank you. First cadet commander is a sitting judge in the Florida appeals court system. And by golly, that's pretty special. We have one of our cadets who left. She also was a corps commander. She is a vice president of Dow Chemicals. Now, there are lots of vice presidents in the organization for many things, but she is one of them. She was our cadet commander. I know of many retired lieutenant colonels that graduated from our program. 17 cadets in our unit in Tallahassee have gone on to the Air Force Academy, West Point, Annapolis, 17 cadets. I attended the graduation ceremony for 2, and I can tell you it's a special feeling to know that you had something to do with their graduating from the Air Force Academy at that time. I have right now flying combat missions over Iraq, Afghanistan, and wherever else there is trouble in the world, flying combat missions. One of our former female cadets, she's a major, and she flies aboard combat command and control aircraft. Decorated. This is only one I know of. I'm sure that the other units can give me names if they took the time, and we could give them the same kind of credit. General Jones, former Commandant of the Marine Corps, when asked about the junior unit and its value, he had 2 words: beyond contest. General Jones, Commandant of the Marine Corps. General Eric Shiniski, Chief of Staff of the Army. 30% joined the active forces. But General Ryan, Chief of Staff of the Air Force, and Admiral J. Johnson, both on the Joint Chiefs of Staff, said, what about the other 70%? That 70% tells our nation also and helps our nation in our citizenship program. And a significant comment from General Colin Powell. how it benefits the armed forces and the special public relations as well. So I think what I think is pretty important. Parents' feedback is the best feedback that I get. They always say the same thing, marked improvement of their student. Their student is better in self-discipline. Their son is a better motivated person. He works well with others, and he's staying in school. My continuing pleasure and pride in working with this program, I'm glad that I was able to get a chance to participate today. I apologize for the length, but the papers kept coming in the computer and there was more pages. And as you type on this page, there's a blank page comes up and you got to keep some of it in. I'm sorry. I'm thankful to have been part of this valuable and significant program for the youth of our great city and our county. And I thank you very much for standing in the cold and allowing me to be part of this program today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. We're now proud to honor our veterans and first responders with the ringing of the Special U.S. Navy Reserve Center Marine Corps bell. Please ring the bell to remember all those members of our military services who have given their lives in service to this great nation. Ring the bell. Please ring the bell to remember all those members of our first responders who have given their lives in service to our country. Please ring the bell to honor and remember those students and personnel of Leon County Schools who gave the ultimate sacrifice in service to our great nation. Ring the bell. Please remember our Gold Star mothers and all Gold Star and Blue Star mothers everywhere. Ring the bell. Please remember those members of our military services and first responders who place their lives in constant danger while continuing to serve this nation and its people. Ring the bell. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing for the laying of the memorial wreath, followed by the sounding of taps played by the Rickards Jr. ROTC. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the retiring of the colors.
Ready? Cut! Right, turn, march! Forward, march, left, 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 right, left, 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 left,
The individual in charge of this ceremony for Tallahassee is David Wilson. Coach, thank you for your untiring efforts, and thank you for all the volunteers who make this possible year after year. And Superintendent Pons, above all, thank you for what you do. This concludes our ceremony. Please keep the memories of all who have served this great country in your hearts and prayers, and thank you so much for being here. We are dismissed.
Good job.